All right, so solving basic percent problems, we're going to look at these in equations, but, well, as proportions, okay? So if we look at a problem like this one, you know what, you guys take 30 seconds and see if you can solve this problem, all right? 30 seconds, go. Now, I like this problem because 50%, like a lot of you may be thinking, well, I'm going to change that into a fraction, and this one's pretty easy to solve. Now, there's two basic ways to solve it. One is more preferred than the other, mostly in terms of consistency than not, but you can use either method that you want, okay? At the percent proportion and the percent equation, so it doesn't matter which of these you use. I'm going to be using the percent proportion, okay? And the reason why I do it is because, again, it's more consistent, especially in terms of what we just barely learned about solving proportions in 5.2. So the percent proportion sets up like this. It's the percent over 100 equals the part over the whole. Now, hopefully we understand the relationship between these, right? 100, this would be considered, excuse me, 100%, which is all of everything. It's the total, it's the whole of whatever it is that we're comparing. A percent is usually just a part of a whole, which is why it's straight across from the part. So this goes back to kind of scale factors kind of stuff. The percent equation, which sets up a little differently, but I mean it kind of ends up being the same. We just need to remember that whatever percent you're using, it needs to be written as a decimal, not as the percent. So that's where we're going to see if you use the percent equation, not that I'm going to be using it a lot. But if you use the percent equation, you need to learn how to change a percent to a decimal. So it's the whole value multiplied by the percent equals the part. So let's look at that in relationship to that last problem. And hopefully you guys got this, whether you use the percent proportion or equation. We're going to use both. But after this, I'm using the percent proportion just because it is more consistent than the percent equation. Now, in the percent proportion, we see these two keywords. It's still going to work the same thing in the same way in the equation. Excuse me. But so let's look at this both ways. Okay. So again, on the percent proportion, it's always out of 100, and it's part over the whole. Now on this one, they told us the percent. It's 50%, right? So I'm going to put, again, I don't really need to change it into a decimal in the percent proportion, which is what makes this really nice. The other thing for the part and the whole I need to look for is these two words. Now I do see this word is, but it told me it is a percent, so I'm not really saying that it is 50. Okay, but what I do see is this of 320. So since it's of 320 and the whole is the of, then the 320 is the whole. Okay, and without going into too much more detail, this is the most basic way that students seem to do well with this percent proportion stuff, which means that in this case, I don't know the part. In other words, I don't know what 50% of 320 is. So this sets up a proportion, which we've done lots of solving of, or for, with, whatever. And now I'm ready to solve this proportion. So I would cross multiply, which is the method we seem to prefer, right? So I'd have 50 times 320 just to start. And I'll go to my calculator for that one just to make sure I do it right. So that's going to be 16,000. That 1, 2, 3. And this equals the other cross multiplied, which is 100x. So I have an equation that I need to solve here. And we'll finish solving it by dividing both sides by 100. To make that 1x equals 160. Now, could you have used scale factors? You could have. You could have said, well, it's 100 divided by 2 is 50. 320 divided by 2 is 160. And that would be scale factors. And again, this is the nice thing about using the percent proportion is it gives us lots of different options. Now, the percent equation, and this is the only time I'm going to use the percent equation here. Again, it's because of the consistency of the percent proportion. The percent equation is going to come out nice because what two values did it give us? It gave us the whole and it gave us the percent. But again, the thing about the percent, it is 50%, but I need to change that into a decimal, which means I'd move the decimal 2 times to the left, making that 0.5. And again, it gave us the whole at 320. So I have 320 times 0.5 is going to equal the part, whatever it is. And again, I would just say x for now. And yes, 320 times 0.5 is 160. Now, we don't really need the x there, but yeah, 160 would be 50% of 320. So there's both methods. And again, if you're like, yeah, I'm really committed to this percent equation stuff, feel free to do it. Just be careful because sometimes it can make, we can get the whole and the part mixed up, or we may forget to change the percent into a decimal. So we'll emphasize it with both on this one. So 5.2%, again, I'll use the percent proportion. And yes, they gave us the percent on this one at 5.2. Now this one, again, it shows of 25, and the whole is the of, so that's our denominator. In the other fraction, we just don't know what the numerator is or the part. So in solving this one, still cross multiplication, 5.2, going to the calculator, times 25, 130. I guess I skipped a step right there, and then 100 times x. So now divide both sides by 100. And that'll tell us what x is. And I'm okay with the decimal on this one just because we started with the decimal. If you wanted the fraction, that's okay. But I got 1.3. That one's pretty nice. Well, what about the percent equation? Well, again, we're given the whole at 25. The percent, 5.2, I need to change that into a decimal by moving the decimal 2 times to the left, 0.052. So multiplying these out, I will have the part. So it equals, we'll say x again. So the part, 25 times 0.052. And we should get 1.3 again, which we do. So again, both methods work. Again, you got to be careful with which is the whole and which is the part. And this one, again, it's still, you're still looking for the same words, the of and the is. And again, this one said it is a percent, but since it is the percent, it's just the percent. Okay, it didn't tell us what it is. We'll see examples where we see the is instead of the of. Okay. So 380 is what percent of 190? Well, again, I'm going to continue using the percent proportion. If you want to use the equation, again, it still works. Now on this one, I noticed that it didn't give me the percent, right? What percent means that I don't know the percent, and the percent is always over 100. Now, the two key words we need is and of. And right here it says it's of 190. Now remember, the of is the whole, which is the denominator in the second fraction. So this is 190 here, which means that 380 is, which we can see it is associated with the word is. So that is my numerator. So I got 380 over 190, and this equals x over 100. So cross multiplication, right? X times 190, we'll just make that 190x. And this should equal 100 times 380, which would be 38,000. Well, to solve this one, I want the coefficient of x to be 1, so I'll divide both sides by 190. And 38,000 divided by 190, we'll go to the calculator. Even though I know some of you guys could do that in your head, and that's okay. So 38,000 divided by 190 equals 200. Now what this means, and you got to be careful with this one, because if this was a written test and you wrote 200, I'd have to take a point off. And that's because it asked for the percent, right? 380 is what percent of 190? It's 200% of 190. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. When it asks for a percent, make sure you label it as a percent. All right, 170 is what percent of 510? Let's find out. So again, I got my percent proportion. Percent over 100 equals the part over the whole. And again, they didn't tell us what the percent was. So that's my x, my unknown. And again, I see of 510, so that's my whole or denominator in the second fraction. And it's 170 is, trying to color code that. So I got 170 over 510 equals x over 100. So in keeping with our preferred method of solving this with cross multiplication, x times 510 is going to be 510x. And then 100 times 170. We can see the multiplication on this is pretty nice, right? Gives me 17,000. And then finally dividing by the coefficient of x, 510 gives us 1x. And again, I'll do that in my calculator. 17,000 divided by 510. Oh, it's a decimal. That's okay. I'm just going to round this to the nearest tenth, though. It didn't say to, but it probably should have. So 33.3%. If you wanted to be exact, you can put this in bar notation. And again, this is the nice thing, is this gives me the percent directly. I don't need to change a decimal to a percent or a percent to decimal. Whatever value it gives me out of this is the actual percent. All right, 60% of what number is 30? Well, let's find out. With the percent proportion. So it's out of 100. And yes, this one did give us the percent, 60. So it's 60 over 100. And remember, the two key words we're looking for is of and is in these types of problems. And it said it is 30, which means that's my numerator, 30. Or the 30 is the part. And in this case, I don't know my whole value. So 60% of what number is 30? Of what number? Hopefully that kind of makes sense as well. It's of the whole, which is the denominator in that second fraction. So we're ready to solve this with cross multiplication. Some of you guys would say, well, I already see what it is with scale factors, and that works too, but I'm going to keep up with this cross multiplication stuff. So 60 times x is 60x, and 100 times 30 is 3,000. And then to solve this one, I just want the coefficient of x to be 1, so divide both sides by 60, making that 1x, and 3,000 divided by 60 should be 50. Yep. 50. Now, what I said about scale factors would work, right? So all I meant by that is I see 60 and 30, there's a relationship. 30 is half of 60, so half of 100 is 50. Bam. And again, this one is only asking for the number, so I don't need to label this with a percent. All right, 280 is 60% of what number? You guys take a minute and see if you can solve this one, all right? 1 minute. Go. All right, hopefully that was long enough for you guys. Let's get started. If you're still working, just check with what you have with what we get, even if you use the percent equation. So 280 is 60%, right? 60% means that the 60 goes over 100, even if you have the fractions switched. Okay, so 60 over 100 equals part over whole. And this one, I would look and see that it says of what number. And remember, the of is always the denominator of the other fraction, but it doesn't say what it is of, which means it's an unknown or variable value, x. And the 280 is, and we see it's associated with the word is right there, so it's 280 is the part. So this sets up my percent proportion, which I'm ready to solve. 60 times x, just 60x, equals 100 times 280, which is 28,000. And then I would finish this one off by dividing both sides by 60, like we've done with the other examples, making that 1x. This one's kind of big though, so I'll use my calculator. 28,000 divided by 60. This one gives me a decimal value. That's okay. It shows 466.6 repeating. I'll just round this though, okay? We'll make it 466.7. Rounded to the nearest tenth. So if there is any necessary rounding on the homework, they should tell you where to round to. And again, by 6 repeating, it means that, like we see on the calculator, that it's just a bunch of 6s after that, okay? Now, it does show a 7 at the end. That's of the calculator. That's just because the calculator is telling you that it goes on forever, but this is all the decimal places it can show you, so it's going to round it.